Hi everyone, welcome to the live stream today. So as I said, I'm going to be talking about finishing this painting and just finishing paintings in general. So I hope that this is helpful for you. And if you're on live, please leave a comment and let me know you're here. And let's get started. So last week I did this painting on the live stream, and I'm pretty happy with it actually, but as I've had some time to ponder it, I've been looking at ways that it could be improved. So one of the things I did already was to turn it on its head. Basically it was the other way, and I kind of like that better at this point anyway. That might change. But as I start to analyze my paintings, I look for certain things, and one of the first things that I look for is values, and values are really difficult to see with color. So I often, almost always, take a picture with my phone or iPad and turn it into black and white so I can see the values. But in this, I don't have a lot of value range. I have my darks, a bit of dark and some lights, and then a lot of mid-tones. And I'm okay with that. So if you don't know what I mean by value, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about from white to gray to black. So the grayed down tones being in the middle, the ones that, not grayed down, but the ones that aren't as dark and aren't as close to white. So a lot of times our paintings end up mid-value paintings, and that can be really boring. So we do want the contrast of values. So the more value difference, the more dynamic the painting is going to be. So in this particular painting, I wasn't wanting to have it necessarily high value contrast, because if you remember, my intention with this painting was to kind of express hope and joy and light, and I wasn't thinking of it necessarily being like a super energetic kind of painting, but more a soothing painting. So I want my colors to be kind of subtle and not so much variety in my values. But with that being said, you still want some. So when I started to look at this painting, the one thing that really I found distracting was where my light value was. And it's this patch, which isn't really white, it's kind of a creamy tone, but it didn't matter really which way I put the painting, it is stuck in the center. So that was one of my first considerations. I don't want my emphasis to be in the center. So I'm going to move that, change that around. The other thing that is kind of bothering me is these pinks across from each other. Now that may look different when I shift this, but it's still right now I find it a little bit problematic. So I'm going to adjust this down into a little bit different color, a little bit more grayed down, or just a bit different, so it's not having this kind of bounce back and forth. The other thing I look at is my marks, how I've applied the paint. So I use a scraper a lot in this. So I have a lot of more flat marks and stuff, but I do have some interesting scribbles, and which are lines as well, leading you in and around. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm happy with the feel of the energy of the way my eye moves around. It's kind of got this circular feel to it. And I do have a nice variety of shapes. That's another thing I look for, so that they're not all just kind of feeling the same. I look at my corners. Now in this one, I do have two corners that are feeling quite a bit similar, so I'll probably adjust one of those, maybe this one I'm thinking. And yeah, I have neutrals in there, which is good. I don't have a lot of hard edges. Now hard edges become lines, so this is a bit of a hard edge. There's one there as well. So the thing with hard edges is they demand more attention. So they'll kind of lead you around the painting a bit, but I want this painting to not have too much structure and not too many hard edges, because I am trying to create a softness to it. So I am going to leave the hard edges, but I like the softness of this, and I like, you probably can't see it on camera here, but there are some subtleties in my marks in different places. So those are things that I look for. First and foremost is my corners, my emphasis, where that is. If I have a bullseye in the center, and that's so easy to do, especially when you're just working intuitively. And working non-objectively, non-objective abstract is probably the hardest type of painting to do, because we don't have a photo reference to look back on. So we don't know what we're creating. We're just creating and letting the painting evolve, and we have to allow the painting to kind of lead us and have this conversation with the painting. So when I get to this stage, I usually like to let it rest for a bit and put it in a gazing gallery. So I've had plenty of time to gaze at it. And I did also use some technology. I used the UDoodle app and made some revisions so I could test some ideas out. And if you haven't already had an opportunity or didn't know, I have posted up a UDoodle tutorial on YouTube that I made, and walking you through the steps of how I use it on my paintings and how effective it can be to make adjustments and help you evaluate. So we're going to get started. I'm going to start making some adjustments, and you can follow along. And this is totally subjective. There's so many ways you could take a painting to finish it, and so many, everybody will have some different ideas. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'll try and stand off to the side, and I've got some paint mixed, and I'll get my gloves on. I certainly like wearing gloves with the cold wax and oil, and that's probably the next thing I'm going to run out of. So this is, and I'm sure that surgical gloves are like masks right now, that they're in high demand and short supply. So I'll be donning a pair of garden gloves, I expect. So let's get started. Like I said, that I feel is my big problem. So that's the first thing that I'm going to correct. So let's see. I'm going to put some green over it just to bring my green down. And this is pretty fresh, but it's soft, and it might be too light of a value still. I'm thinking. I didn't change the value much. So I'm going to just adjust that a bit, I think. And with cold wax and oil, I can do a little bit of layering before I have to let it set up. So yeah, that looks a little better. Now, I'm not worried about getting an exact color like I had somewhere before. In fact, I am more interested in getting a different kind of color, so that I have some variations in here. And I think that makes it a lot more interesting when we modulate and make our colors different. So So that got rid of the bullseye for now, and I'm going to tone down the pink beside it. So these, it's not looking like something in the center of two pink things. Maybe just, can you guys see okay? Okay, that's, yeah, it's feeling a little fresh, even though I did gray it down. I might gray it down a bit more even. So even though I have ideas, and you get ideas on UDoodle, they don't necessarily always look the same, translate exactly the same when you're actually physically working on your piece. So don't, if you are making those adjustments on an app, don't get totally married to it. So I'm looking at these as shapes, and so I want to have this variety of shapes so that these aren't all the same feeling. And I may come back to that. So I am watching the screen as well. I've got my screen over here that I can see what's happening. And if you have any questions as I go, I'll watch for them. So feel free to ask. So this corner is blue, and I want to change that so it's not the same as this. So I'm going to try some yellow, my favorite color, if you know me. I'm trying to stay out of my own way here. So I still like some of that blue, and but just to make that different. And again, I may tone that up a little bit different, but I also might, you know, make some marks into this too, just to bring a little bit of that blue back in and make it a little more interesting. So now let me go back into this area. So when I think about focal points, so focal points or emphasis can be in more than one place. You can have a dominant one and a secondary one. And there are kind of guidelines, but really your emphasis could be anywhere. But I've already demonstrated flat smack in the middle doesn't look great. So if you're not aware of the rule of thirds, that is a really good way to play it safe for your emphasis. So by cutting the painting in thirds this way and thirds this way, we'll have where the lines meet 4 spots. So if I look at that now, I can kind of decide where I want the emphasis to be. And it could be in any one of those places. And for me right now, I feel like I need to balance this out. So I don't feel like I want my eye over there. I'm feeling like more to do something here. And this is feeling almost like a bit of a focal point too. So I want to bring the eye up here more. So anywhere where you put light against dark is going to give you a lot more oomph. And I don't really have dark there, but I'm going to go with some light and see how that goes. If I have to bring more dark in, or a shot of a brighter color will also bring more emphasis. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and put something in there that would be, I have to make something here. I didn't make a color for that. So I don't want it pure white. That'll just be too, I think, too much. But maybe a little bit. I've got this dirty pink color I made, and I'll add some white to it. And sorry, I just don't have a way of showing you how I'm mixing colors on the palette. So so I'm going to come in here. Might be a little fresh, we'll see. Yeah, it's feeling quite white, even though it isn't really. So tone a little bit of that over top, maybe down into this area. So now definitely my eye is going there more. Not saying I love it. I feel like I'm standing in front of the screen here. Okay, so I'm going to come back in here with some coral. And again, this coral is feeling a little different than what I had there, and that's okay. It makes it interesting. So yeah, and it's hard to see. I'm standing off to the side, but definitely my eye is going there more. My corners are different. I want to bring a little more emphasis into there though, so I'm gonna maybe try coming back in with my orange oil bar. This is cat orange. I think that's what I used last time. And maybe just come into this area somewhere and juice this up a bit. So I'm working kind of wet into wet there. Maybe I'm going to try this marabou crayon. So I like loosening things up and kind of pulling them together with some marks. That's just something I like to do. And I can definitely go back and do some softening with that. Okay, I'm still not liking the green in the center. This part is a little too bright. So go ahead and change that. So it's about the value in that case that it's demanding a lot of attention there. So I'm going to neutralize it. So to neutralize green, I need to add the opposite, which is red. And that's how you make mud if you don't want mud. This is intentional, but if it wasn't, you would get something you didn't want. So right now I put too much red in and I'm getting some pink, and that might be okay too. Red is a really highly pigmented color, and it takes such a little bit to really change it. So it's not really green anymore. It's kind of pinky, dirty green. And I'm not worried about covering up the whole thing. I just want to push it back. Now, because this painting is dry, like from last week in most places, I could also use a brayer to come in and kind of glaze over or push back some color. So, and you know, these paintings, they could go on forever and ever. You can just keep adding and adding and adding. Yeah, I like that better now, for sure. But the thing with, you know, eventually it feels done for where you are at the moment in your journey. And so as I always feel like a painting is really never finished until it's out of my hands. So in other words, it's gone off to its forever home. As long as it's in my possession in my studio, there's always a chance that it's going to get changed. And the reason that happens is because we change, we grow as artists, and we start to realize that our work back then maybe wasn't as good as we could make it now. And so, you know, there's a lot of artists that say a painting isn't ever finished, it's just abandoned. So right now is a great time to revisit some of our previous work and, you know, take a good look at it and try and maybe make some adjustments and improvements on it. And it's also a great time to be learning some new stuff. So that's what I've been doing in my studio, just trying a bunch of different things with non-objective abstracts and just working with cold wax and oil, as long as I still am able to have supplies. And I did run out of cold wax and made a batch, so I still have beeswax and I'm able to do that. So yeah, so I see I have a black mark here I'm not too happy about. So you guys might be able to see things I can't because you're at a distance, and I always find it hard when I'm right up close, but I am liking this better, and my eye is definitely going there now, which I like, and I don't like that black mark. So that might have got on there after, but I'm going to go in and just camouflage that a little bit. So I could be working also, that's quite a bit darker, I could be working with palette knives, various scrapers, and that's the other thing. By using different tools, you're going to get different marks. And I don't know why that looks like such a different blue than I used before, but I think it's the same. I'm just going to doctor that up again. I think I added some colors to push it back, and it's got a bit too much red in it now. It's feeling a bit too mauve. But it is nice to have a bit of variety. Yeah, so I can see I have a lot of yellow in the blue that I've got on here too. So color is really important, and if you're finding you're getting stuck in your painting, especially if you don't have a photo reference, you want to go back and see if it matches your intention when you started it. What were you thinking? What were you trying to convey? If you had some starting point, you want to just check in with that. I mean, I wasn't trying to make a painting with a lot of energy, so I wanted something more calm and subdued, but nevertheless not flat. So it does have some energy with the marks and whatnot. And my background was yellow, and I'm finding that the yellow is peeking through and kind of hinging it together in places. I like that a lot. It's got a fine line here, bringing us in. This acts as a line, as does that. So I think there's lots of movement in this. And I'm going to step back for a minute. Yeah, I see my white is a little bit more centered than I might like now that I stand back and look at it. This is a problem painting off on the side, is that you're kind of getting a different perspective. So I'm also going to change this. That was kind of bothering me from a distance. So because this is feeling a little central, if I divide this, it's kind of right there. So I think I'm going to try and move the eye just over slightly. So I'm getting really kind of picky and fussy now, but just maybe having this peek through. What do you think? Bringing our eye over a little bit. I think that's helpful. And then maybe I'm going to bring a pop of orange over here or something. yeah, so I might play with this a bit more over time as I look at it, but those are the things that I wanted to work on and change, and I think I'm going to pull the the tape off so we can see how it looks without this lovely border. So this was the 3M, oh yeah, it's gonna fall down. The 3M tape. And it's a newer product, and it's, whoops, less tacky. Oh, I had a big bleed through there. That's because I didn't poke it down hard enough. Come back here. Need 3 hands to do that job. Okay, I'll just put it like that. Well, that's unfortunate that I got a big bleed through there. I might be able to touch it up with some paint, but it always looks better once you get that look of a mat around it. And now I'll be able to take a really good look at it and maybe come back and make a few more adjustments. So again, things that you want to look for in your work are where is your focal point, your emphasis, is it in a good place? Your value, do you have a nice range of values going on? Do you have a nice variety of colors, like don't use colors straight from the tube, but have you mixed some colors so you have a variety of greens, a variety of pinks, a variety of blues, whatever it is, different gradations of those colors. Do you have a good sense of scale in your shapes, that you have a nice variety of shapes going on in your work? And is your eye flowing around? You know, is it getting stuck everywhere? Do you have variety in your color, so it's not feeling so boring, that you've got a nice palette going on? Is it conveying the message that you want it to? Rhythm and movement, do you have some feeling of rhythm? So I always go back to music, of course, because I'm a musician too, but we don't want it to feel flat and like there's no kind of dynamics and long beats and pauses. Otherwise it just becomes very monotone. So you might want to consider if you have pattern, and you don't have to have everything in every painting, but this I don't have pattern as such, but some of my squiggles come off as being pattern. So negative and positive space. So this is very negative. It's kind of surrounding the action and giving us a little bit of a softer place in the background. Shapes. Do you have geometric shapes? Do you have organic shapes? Look at your edges. Do you have hard edges and soft edges? Forms. Forms are three-dimensional. We don't have to have forms, but just to know the difference. A shape is a circle, is flat. A form is a sphere. It's three-dimensional. And then we have lines, crisp lines, heavy lines, thin lines, thick lines, straight lines, curved lines, squiggly lines, implied lines, like this, little dots. So many considerations, and you don't have to have all of them in every painting, but those are just things to look at. So the first and foremost is, what I ask myself is there anything sticking out that feels bad? And in this one, it was my target in the center. And the next thing I ask myself is, do I have a variety of shapes? And what are my values looking like? And then I'm also going to look at my edges and my corners. And that should get you on the road of making better paintings. And hopefully that was helpful. And I look forward to seeing some of your work in the Facebook community group. And I'm certainly there to ask questions, and happy to help you answer them if you're getting stuck on your paintings. So I think that's it for the live stream today, but thanks for watching, and popping in. Enjoy your weekend. It's chilly here today, and it's nice to be in my cozy studio. So take good care, everyone, and I know we're all comfort eating now, so make sure that you balance that too with some exercise. So enjoy your evening, and we'll see you next week. And also Art Talk on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. You're all welcome to pop into Art Talk. I'll put a notice up in the Facebook group. And yeah, I think next week on the live stream, I think I may change the date back to Friday. This Friday I had some interference, so it didn't work for me. So on, yeah, I think I'm going to maybe paint flowers next time, because it feels like we should be having spring and I should paint flowers. So how do you think about that? So I'm going to sign off. It looks like my battery is going to be finished. It sucks the juice out fast on these live streams. So I will see you back in the group. Bye for now.